Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone. It is the Monday, May 11th, 2026 episode of the Marco Jure Show. Thank you for tuning in here. Today's groundbreaking news right here in America and across the board, where the facts are facts and our truths thrive. Let's begin the best hour of radio, informative, uncensored, unapologetic, and ready to go. I have to tell you, folks, even though it's Monday, it's a brand new week, I'm already fuming about what I'm seeing coming out of the White House this weekend. Where is our leadership? You know, I'm sick of this trajectory of our nation in constant decline, and has been for quite some time now. I look around, I see things getting worse, not better. And folks, we really cannot ignore this any longer. Let me begin today's show with a simple question to you, my listeners. Do you feel that the Trump administration has your back? Or has this administration turned its back on its constituents? In other words, we, the American people, that elected them to represent us. To fix what Biden and Harris and company did to break the nation? To stop the foreign wars that we found ourselves in Ukraine and Gaza alike? I think it's a fair question. Now, let me explain to you why I believe this administration is failing us. Now, whether it be the hollowing out of our middle class, the outsourcing of good-paying jobs, losing manufacturing jobs, which has been happening for decades, by the way, and it didn't start with President Trump. Don't misunderstand me here. But President Trump ran on the platform that he was going to build the middle class, America first. And now we've got the idea that he wants to bring in more H-1B visa holders in America to pass up American citizens, which he knows will add to more economic struggle in America. It won't be helping us out. And again, if you're an American, don't bother applying. Step aside, let some business that can underpay someone from China or India, wherever they bring them in from, after you've wasted years on a college degree, have a six-figure debt now in student loan payments to deal with, and you'll be lucky if you ever even pay them off. Where is the opportunity? That's what I ask you. Where are the opportunities? Don't even get me started with AI disappearing white-collar jobs or even menial jobs alike. But a nation can't survive off Amazon packages, Starbucks lattes, public sector jobs, and military spending, folks. It just simply won't work that way. We need to rebuild the middle class, and that's not happening. I've talked to you about this on the program so many times. We need to bring back the manufacturing jobs. We need to bring in and encourage entrepreneurship. That's how you build a nation. And we have stopped doing that for roughly at least 3 decades now. At least. Now, we can also talk about the deliberate devaluing of our dollar, which means inflation for you and me, year after year. And your job growth, it just remains stagnant, which we saw on Friday's show. And by the way, I'm not saying you can't go out and achieve your dreams, achieve your goals, have your dream job, do well in America. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying to you is that it's becoming much, much more difficult in order to achieve these goals. We have an out-of-control Congress with bloated spending budgets year after year, usually on things we don't want, we don't need. And then, of course, we have deficit spending on top of that, just so we have these social welfare programs and foreign aid packages now for decades. It just seems to never end for us. So we always have money for military spending. We have money for foreign aid to give to other countries that they can utilize. But we never have anything for right here at home. Wouldn't it be amazing if the federal government spent, I don't know, a couple $1 billion on every single state to give them money to function, to invest in themselves? I would rather prefer, instead of giving foreign aid to 50 different nations, give the money to 50 different countries, which we take in. Wouldn't that be something a little bit more beneficial? I think so. Now, Scott Bessent, the Treasury spokesmoron, who worked for George Soros. Did you know that, by the way? Oh, yeah, Scott Bessent. Yeah, the rot runs deep. This guy, who he and his stupid-looking son, Alex, George Soros, who funded money to destroy our nation constantly through these NGOs like the the Open Society Foundation? I call it the Open Border Society Foundation. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, Scott Bessent worked for them. That should tell you a little bit about his character. Fortune magazine published an article where Besson announced that we will have to borrow some $2 trillion this year just to be able to have the government functioning. Now, this comes at a time when China has stopped buying up our debt. Japan has stopped buying up our debt. In other words, folks, we're insolvent if they don't do these things, if they start selling more of the debt that they have. So, folks, we're broke, my friends. We have to understand we're not living within our means. All the billions of dollars the government takes in, how do we have this out of control spending year after year after year? We don't know how to balance things. That's the problem. And we continue to borrow and borrow. And this Keynesian economics idea that we'll be just fine, we'll develop ourselves just fine, is ridiculous. And by the way, if we really want to bankrupt the Iranian economy, which is being touted right now out of the White House, why not just send Scott Besson over there to put him in charge of their banking system? That might actually work. Who knows? Might even cost us a little less money. We got no money for our roads, our sidewalks, our bridges, tunnels, airports, schools. But hey, we have enough money to bomb foreign nations, no matter what. Did you know that, by the way, Pulp Fiction Pete Hegseth, this guy is making videos now. I saw one over the weekend. It's absolutely absurd. It's called The Arsenal of Freedom. And he's pushing this narrative about getting more money from Congress to the tune of some $1.5 trillion. That's what they've allocated. That's what they want. And on top of that, they're asking for another $200 billion to pay for this war of stupidity inside of Iran. Can you believe this? That we've never not given more money allocated for defense spending to go to war. Never. That money is always there, ready to go. Right out of your pockets. You're paying for it. I'm paying for it, whether we like it or not. And it's not like I'm saying we can't have a strong military. We shouldn't build up our military. I'm not saying that at all. But this idea that we have to spend more money on the military budget than the next 10 nations behind us is absurd. And just to illustrate the absurdity, Iran was able to destroy a $1.1 billion radar inside Qatar that we use for surveillance, and they destroyed it with a drone that cost anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000. Look at that difference. They were able to get a drone that cost maybe $20,000 to destroy a piece of technology worth over $1 billion? And nobody sees a problem with this? Maybe we're overspending, folks. I don't know. But what good is spending $1.1 billion if the Iranians can send in a drone and simply destroy it right away, making it inoperable? And that's why I've told you we have over $100 billion just in our own military bases all across the Persian Gulf. And by the way, is China investing in war right now? No. They're investing in infrastructure, manufacturing, AI, the refining of rare earth minerals, getting trade surpluses, especially with us. In other words, folks, they're growing their economy. Now, that doesn't mean their economy's perfect. Their economy's struggling right now, too. But I want to make the point here that they're not investing in their money in wars. They're at least investing inside of China. They're growing. They're developing themselves. Before they entered the World Trade Organization, their GDP was flatlined. It was like almost non-existent. Then good old Billy Clinton invites them in 2001, and look where they are now. Then we had more of the outsourcing of jobs to China, and it is what it is. This is where we are now today. Now, we're at another tipping point, too, with our food supply. Right now, we can't even get fertilizer to our farmers. We've choked off 35% of the global supply of fertilizer. That means urea, nitrogen. We can't get feed to our farmers. We can't get water to our farmers. This is going to be affecting the crop yields this year, the herd sizes. And really, it's going to be affecting their ability to make a profit, potentially putting them out of business. And nobody seems to give a damn about that. Why the hell not? These are the guys that get up every single day and work hard so that we have food on the table. Which means, of course, your ability to purchase food now in any meaningful way is going to become diminished. What's going to happen then? What are you going to do? Buy your own livestock then? Where are you going to put it if you're in a city? What are you going to grow your own garden in a city? You're not going to do it. And this is why the Green Revolution was so monumental here in the United States. We had enough farmers, we had enough vision so that they can produce in a meaningful way to get food all over the country. And we had a plethora of food in this nation. Then under the Biden administration, of course, a lot of that got diminished under COVID. I won't say it wasn't. But we actually started seeing empty shelves here in the United States. We never saw this before. We never saw things like this. And that realization is starting to happen yet again, because now we have 70% of farmers saying they don't have the means to pay for the fertilizer now in order to keep the existing crop yield that they have now. And if they can't use the fertilizer, they're not producing. And so that means what? Do they borrow more money? Is there even going to be fertilizers to get if they borrow this money? What about when that supply dries up completely? What are they going to do then? You could have all the money in the world. You could be, George Soros. You could be Bill Gates. You could be Mark Zuckerberg. You could be all these people. If the food supply is not there, and if you don't have the means to produce your own food, that doesn't mean anything if that supply is completely dried up. Now, I can go on to other topics, too, where we are, folks. The education system in this country, the crime in this nation. There's so many other topics we could discuss about where we are as a people right now. But if this tirade right now hasn't woken you up, that the troubling times are ahead of us right now, I don't know what I can say that will snap you out of it. I really don't. And as for the ignoramuses online, the people that no matter what President Trump does, all they do is comment, I voted for this. I keep seeing this, by the way. Trump could say anything. They come on, I voted for this. Oh, really? These people are just as much to blame as the Democrats who champion America's decline and work for it. You voted for what? Stagflation? No wage growth? A bankrupt economy? Higher gas prices? Higher food prices? Illegal wars? Taking Greenland now? And now we're talking about taking Cuba too, by the way. We can't even control our own country. Now we're going to go take Cuba for what? Make it better? I mean, this is all just ridiculous. It's not necessary. We're not focusing on what's taking place at home. We need to fix what's taking place inside of our own borders. This is where President Trump's focus should all be. And then, of course, what if, let's say the economy was booming and we decreased our debt, which is skyrocketing to almost $40 trillion now. But if we got things under control, and, for example, we wanted to help other nations, if things were under control, which they are nowhere near under control, but if they were, then you could help your allies. That's fine. But this spending billions of dollars in other countries' military spending, it's just unbelievable. And now, since the war in Iran has begun, and I call it a war of stupidity, we're on day 101 of this war, and again, because there was zero justification for this conflict to even begin. Certainly nothing constitutional about how we got started with this. And spare me the Iran has nukes. Spare me that they have the enriched uranium propaganda, okay? Or that we want to save the Iranian people. That's another one that had died away a little while ago, which I find ironic since about a month ago, President Trump said a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. Remember that? I mean, we're talking about the openly referring to online, so everybody could read it. The genocide of everybody inside of Iran. Our president online posting such sick things, to me, is completely out of control. It's reckless. It's totally inappropriate. We're supposed to be leading the world, showing the example that, yes, if you have free market capitalism, yes, if you have these freedoms for your people, you can achieve great things too. Instead, we're talking about murdering an entire civilization? Bombing them into the Stone Age? I don't understand this. Who could think that this is okay? What if another leader around the world said this about us? What would we say about this? We'd obviously be up in arms about this. Now, stay with me. We have to focus on the facts of the matter, which I always present to you, by the way. We have to understand some things here. Iran has never attacked us. That is a fact. Iran has never attacked us since we became a nation, or even before that, of course. Nor have they ever threatened to attack us. And of course, they haven't attacked any nation since, I think it was the late 1700s. And I know some of you say, well, they shout death to America, don't they? They shout death to Israel, death to the West. And I say, yes, some of them get in the streets and they do say these things. Absolutely. We've heard it. But we've got to understand they are referring to the governments of these nations, not the citizens of these nations. And again, if you look at our history of setting up a coup inside of Iran in 1953, making it our very own puppet state in the Middle East, to the U.S. backing the then Shah, who we installed, and then, of course, protecting him after the fall of the 1979 Iranian Revolution. This was the same Shah whose Savak, the secret police, would machine gun protesters. Where's all the good-to-do constitutionalists about that? No, I don't see them anywhere. Yeah, the same Savak that would abduct people, that would torture people, and even murdered 30,000 Iranians from 1957 to 1979. Have you ever heard this on any mainstream media platform? Not once. You never heard these things. And I'm not saying this regime is perfect. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying, though, is that after this 1979 revolution, we then decided under the great Jimmy Carter, right? Oh, good old Jimmy Carter. He decided that we would act as a proxy to get Iraq to go into Iran, of course, invade them, go to war with them. We gave them weapons, including chemical weapons, and this killed at least 300,000 Iranians, 70,000 of which were civilians. And right now, a lot of the people that are serving in this current regime, they actually fought in that war, by the way. It was a long war. Just like the now Supreme Leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. I think he was 17 years old when he joined the war. Didn't have to, but he joined the war anyways. But now I want you to think about this right now for a second. Just think logically for a moment. If hypothetically, let's say Great Britain funded Canada to go to war with the United States for 8 years, 8 long years, and that resulted in 300,000 dead Americans, 70,000 of which were average civilians, not even involved in the war. I know for a fact we would have nothing but animosity towards Great Britain, and rightfully so. And we could also talk about the crippling of the sanctions that we've put on them, which affects their quality of life, their inability to trade, and other things of that matter. But folks, the facts are all here. The fact of the matter is that we have attacked Iran twice now during these negotiations, which violates international law 100%. We assassinated their supreme leader. Now, whether you like him or not, we did. And, Iran is always a month away, a few weeks away, from getting a nuclear bomb. This is just this typical scare tactic, just to frighten everybody inside the United States. Now, forget the fact that there's zero evidence from our own intelligence agencies that they even have a nuclear bomb, and that the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, issued 2 fatwas back in 2003 preventing them from even building a bomb. Forget all that. Forget there's no evidence they even have a nuclear bomb. Right, you had Marco Rubio last week. Well, they say they don't want to build a bomb, but they really do want to build a bomb. Okay, well, fine. Show me the evidence. Where's the intel that's showing that they're building a nuclear bomb right now? It's in the works, and they're going to be doing this. We've been hearing this for over 30 years now about Iran. Again, a month away, 2 months, 3 months, a couple weeks. Hey, if we don't do something now, 2 weeks from now, those bombs will be hitting the United States. I have to laugh. Let's break that down, too. How are they going to get these nuclear bombs in the United States? They don't have intercontinental ballistic missiles. What, are they going to fly a plane from Iran? And we're not going to know about this? With all the technology we have all throughout the Middle East, we wouldn't see this? We wouldn't be able to detect this if this were true, even if it were, God forbid? I mean, it's unbelievable. But now back to reality. Let's think about this. Iran has signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty. We know they've signed this. They've allowed weapons inspectors to monitor their nuclear facilities. They've signed on to the JCPOA that President Trump just decided to leave in 2019 and replaced it with absolutely nothing, giving them, I guess, immunity to do whatever they want then now with their nuclear weapon technology. They could do that. They could enrich. But let's come full circle to where we are today. This war was about one thing and one thing only. This was all about regime change. We thought this was the best means to get what we want out of Iran. And we thought by killing the Ayatollah and some of the top military leaders in the country that it would implode within 72 hours. We'd call it a victory. But that didn't happen. And we had no strategy at all for what we would do next should that not have happened. So we tried to do what people are saying again to do, which was arm the Iranian people. And by that I mean the factions in the country that are against the government. This would be the Kurds, the Mujahideen al-Khalqs, the Baluchis, some of the other factors in that country. And that didn't work. So what was the next plan? Well, we got to start taking out the military then. We got to start taking out the Ayatollah. Once we do that, everything will collapse, and of course, it did not. It's now caused more Iranian people to back their government as a result of, not losing or not capitulating. They now hold more leverage. Now, again, it's shown that Iran can now fend off a great superpower like the United States. We have the information now that they have at least the stockpiles for, at least a couple more months to hold on to this. And that they can control the Strait of Hormuz. They can continue, and they will do so as long as they need to, should they want to. We cannot militarily force that open. Because if we could have, we would have, and we haven't. Now, I know you don't want to hear this, but that's the truth. Very few people are telling you, ladies and gentlemen. And again, it brings me no joy to tell you this, but this is the fact of the matter right now. Now, let's talk about these new proposals now released over the weekend that Iran has now issued, and where we are in terms of this war. And is it going to be coming to an end? Is it going to be heating up? Let's talk about it. This comes right out of the Washington Times, folks. It says that Iran said Monday that Tehran's response to the United States' demands over the weekend was reasonable and generous, despite President Trump's stern rejection. We got to talk about what they were offering. A way out of this, a way to stop this conflict, which is exactly what President Trump needs. He needs an off-ramp. He needs a way to get out of this without fully admitting that he has been defeated. Now, this proposal reportedly included the demands to end all attacks on Iran. That means no further bombing, of course. Lifting the U.S. naval blockade of the Iranian ports and unfreeze many of Iran's assets that have been restricted by these sanctions. Again, President Trump, who rejected Tehran's proposal on Sunday, has not confirmed the details. But the United States also declined to reveal any details about the proposal sent to Iran last week, though reports have suggested it included a 30-day ceasefire, during which time the two sides could find a comprehensive solution to the conflict. So here's the problem. The Iranians are the ones that have won this conflict. That is a fact. Now, you might disagree with me. You might say, well, Jerez, their economy's struggling. It's not. It certainly is not. And they're holding firm to their ground. And you could argue, but again, who controls the Strait of Hormuz? It's the Iranians. It's not the United States, folks. So we could take a ship, here and there. But Chinese ships, I don't think any of them have been stopped right now. I don't think any Indian ships have been stopped either, or even any Russian ships in the region. And most of the Iranian ships, I believe it's been 150 so far since the blockade has begun in mid-April, that have gotten through. They've shut off their transponders, and they've made it through unscathed. So is the naval blockade even effective? That's the question we should ask ourselves. And it seems like it's not. That's the problem here. So we've got to come to terms with where we are in this conflict. Now, we have negotiators now inside the U.S. They've remained mostly consistent that in their demands, across nearly a year of negotiations with Iran, that they cannot obtain a nuclear weapon, that it must eliminate its nuclear enrichment program completely, and it has to cut support for the regional proxy groups in the region. That would be Hamas and Hezbollah. Those last two are not going to happen. They're not going to enrich to zero. That's simply not going to happen. And they're not going to stop support for the regional proxies. And by the way, this doesn't say this in this Washington Times article, but the war in Lebanon is also on the table for this. So when they say we want peace, we want the end of this conflict, they are also talking about Lebanon. Does anybody listening believe that Netanyahu will go along with that? We know they've already violated this ceasefire with Lebanon multiple times. They've killed many people since then. They've already killed thousands of people inside Lebanon already. And by the way, the same thing has happened inside Gaza too, so I would imagine Gaza will be on the list as well. But this is not going to happen. It's not realistic. Iran is the one that is holding all the cards now. They could end the war, they could stop the war, they can continue it. It doesn't matter to them. They're in this for the long haul. And they're not going to stop. They're simply not going to stop because we tell them to stop or because we threaten them. Those tactics are not going to work. And President Trump has to begin to realize this. He really does. Because if he doesn't, he's going to find himself in a long war, and that's going to cause the global economy to struggle much, much longer. We don't want that. We want this to end. The sooner the better. So, when we're talking about negotiations, when we're talking about coming to the table, he's got to be realistic. That yes, the Iranians have won this war. That yes, they will enrich uranium to a certain degree. But what I think he should do, okay, this is what I believe he should do. They were willing to swear off the nuclear weapons. They've already done this. They've done it with the fatwas, the signing of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. They've done it with the signing of the JCPOA. They've allowed weapons inspectors into their country. They were even going to give us Americans weapons inspectors to come in the negotiations last June. They were already going to agree to a certain level of enrichment, which was very low. I believe it was 3.75%, if I'm not mistaken. They were going to give us all this. It was going to be a brilliant deal, too, by the way. And had President Trump done this, he would have probably gone down as maybe a much greater president than what he will go down as now by starting this war and, of course, bombing a foreign nation twice without any sort of pretext, especially amid negotiations, which is, as I told you before, 100% illegal. But do you think the Iranians are going to say, oh, yes, we will enrich to zero now, don't worry about it, no weapons program, no. They're not going to be conceding to the United States. Now, they may give us that they will not build a nuclear weapon. They might do that now. They might offer, for example, that they will allow weapons inspectors from the United States. Maybe they will allow that too. But they're not going to enrich to zero. They've had enough of this nonsense. They've come to the table twice in good faith. Again, say what you will about the Iranian government. They came to the table and they were willing to give us those things. And in that time frame, we decided to go bomb them behind their backs, surreptitiously, amid negotiations. Like, hi, we'll see you on Monday, when it's, Thursday, and then we bomb them on a Saturday. I mean, we cannot do those things and expect a country just to kowtow to the United States. It's not going to work, and they've had enough of this. They will control the Strait of Hormuz moving forward. They will charge a toll of $2 million in the Iranian rial and in the Chinese yuan, either or. And that's going to have a great effect on the U.S. dollar, too, by the way, folks. Just thought I'd share that with you. But I thought this was interesting, too. Netanyahu was speaking with 60 Minutes, I believe it was yesterday, and he was asked about this war ending, and I think it's important that we listen to see what exactly he said about maybe coaxing President Trump to get in this war. Let's take a listen.
Is the war with Iran over? And if it isn't, who will decide when it is?
I think it accomplished a great deal, but it's not over because there's still nuclear material, enriched uranium that has to be taken out of Iran. There's still enrichment sites that have to be dismantled. There's still proxies that Iran supports. There are ballistic missiles that they still want to produce. Now, we've degraded a lot of it, but all of that is still there, and there's work to be done.
How do you envision the highly enriched uranium will be removed from Iran?
You go in and you take it out.
With what? Special forces from Israel, special forces from the United States?
Well, I'm not going to talk about military means, but what President Trump has said to me, I want to go in there. And I think it can be done physically. That's not the problem. If you have an agreement and you go in and you take it out, why not? That's the best way.
What if there isn't an agreement? Can it be taken out by force?
Well, you're going to ask me these questions. I'm going to dodge them because I'm not going to talk about our military possibilities, plans, or anything of the kind.
Okay, so you get the picture here. Why are we asking a foreign leader when we should be ending this war that we are greatly involved in for them? Let's not mince any words here. Are we outlining new objectives now in this war? Now we have to get the highly enriched uranium? Is that going to be the next thing that we say has to be in agreement to end this conflict now? Just like we were saying now, in order to end the war, we have to open up the Strait of Hormuz, which was opened, by the way, on February the 27th, the day before this war took place. We have to put in ground troops now to go and get this 60% highly enriched uranium hexafluoride, which we apparently said was obliterated last June. So where do they get this 60% highly enriched uranium from? Oh, that's right. We didn't actually blow it all up. Okay. I'll leave you with this, folks, because, again, Netanyahu's not going to say exactly what he's doing. He's a stealth politician. He knows what he's talking about. He knows how to play the media, of course. I'll leave you with this. Listen. The Iranians are likely keeping all of the 450 kilos of the enriched uranium. They are. And by the way, it's not going to be kept in one place. They're not going to just put everything in one place. They're probably going to put it over the course of many different locations all throughout the country. And they're probably putting, lots of monitoring on these locations. But this idea that we're going to send in troops on the ground would be a complete disaster because I don't even know how we would even create this operation. What are we going to drop them in and pray to God that nothing happens to them? How would the Iranians not see this coming when they're getting intel from both the Russians and the Chinese right now? Obviously, we would know because they know exactly where our ships are. They know exactly where they're stationed. And should this operation happen, I think it would be very devastating if we were to, drop in several, military members and try to extract this. And even then, how would we even get in there and do this? It's a very, very big risk, folks. And it's just as disastrous as the taking of Kark Island, putting Marines on Kark Island. It would be absolutely devastating, especially when their coastline is covered with underground missile silos. They have drone support. It would be devastating. And I think it would be even more devastating if they were caught inside of Iran at one of these sites, which I'm sure are heavily guarded too, by the way. But why would President Trump want to go in and start this conflict amid negotiations? That's one thing I think we should have asked them. The United States were talking to the Iranians. Why would we go in and encourage them to be attacked? Of course, they don't ask these questions. But again, it's further proving that they don't have the 90% threshold to develop the nuclear bomb, that's for sure. And this is what I'm getting at right now. If the uranium has only been enriched to 60%, where is the information coming in from Netanyahu that they were only a couple weeks away from getting a nuclear bomb? 10 or 11 nuclear bombs. That's what we keep getting told. So where's the imminent threat then? There was no imminent threat. And how can our intelligence, which we spend $72.4 billion every single year on, not have found out this threat as well? Joe Kent didn't hear about this. Tulsi Gabbard didn't hear about this. I didn't get any reports coming from the CIA that they have this either. So where's Netanyahu getting this information from? Well, he's not. He's simply just telling Trump, and Trump is believing the nonsense. And that's why we're in this conflict. So, again, I don't know if that's the next step in this game after President Trump meets with Xi in China this week on, I believe it's Thursday, that we go in this weekend when the markets are closed, as he tends to do, and try to extract this uranium once and for all. But even then, the Strait of Hormuz is still closed. So do we end the war? Do we start to attack Iranian ports again? What do we do? What is the next step here? Where is the end game? I don't see the end game or any of the objectives even being outlined for us, other than the United States does not want to accept what the Iranians have offered to us. So all these things are very problematic. They're all indicators that, yes, things will continue to accelerate, I believe. And again, I'm very interested to see how Xi treats this situation because, I don't think he's going to take any of this very lightly when President Trump goes to visit on this Thursday and speak with him. So that'll be very, very interesting, I would have to say. And by the way, we talked about the economy in Iran. We said, well, we're going to choke off with this blockade. A couple weeks, they'll be done. That's what Scott Besson predicts, and we all know who he is. But I want to bring your attention to this article out of the Seattle Times. It's just to switch gears for just a moment here. We've got to talk about the reality that the Iranian economy can still get resources in, and they can still ship many resources as well. They can also get more support, even if so-called their drone capabilities were down or their missile capabilities are down. They still have many offensive capabilities. So let's be very clear about this. We've talked on the show about the Belt and Road Initiative going into China through railway. We've talked about the new transportation routes going into Pakistan, for example. And we've talked about the route, as in this article illustrates, inside the Caspian Sea, which is greatly overlooked. So the Caspian can really take on kind of a new significance as a trade route linking Russia to Iran. And we know that the two allies have been embroiled in these wars for quite some time, facing Western sanctions more than any other countries. But this waterway could really prove as a great passageway for both overt and covert trade between the two countries. Shipments have obviously helped Iran persist as an adversary to the U.S., despite the overwhelming military superiority. And by the way, obviously we do have a much superior army, but we have to understand something. We're using tactics from the last century now, and it's not working as we would think it would, right? This isn't World War II, where with this type of attack, this barrage of attacks, would really do a number on a country. That's not the case anymore. When lots of other countries now have these ballistic missiles and these drone capabilities, they have ways of fending off these types of attacks, especially when we don't even live in the region and we have to transport everything over there. Again, it's much more costly as well. But now we have Russia now shipping drone components to Iran via the Caspian Sea. U.S. officials have even stated this. They're helping Iran rebuild its offensive capabilities right now after losing roughly, they're saying 60% of their drone arsenal has been lost during the fighting. I don't buy that at all. I think they're very much well equipped, if I'm being honest with you. And of course, the officials spoke anonymously to divulge the private military assessments. But here's the problem. The Iranians can use the Caspian to send oil and then put it on Russian ships to go to other BRICS nations. They can do that. They're very capable of doing all this stuff. And again, they can get shipments of oil into China much quicker than if they were putting them on oil tankers, by the way. Instead of taking the roughly 30 to 60 days, it could take no less than 15 days to get it to their destinations in eastern China. So there's lots of things happening when you put things through railway. So again, you can also get food into Iran too, by the way. That's, again, very important. Look at this. It says here, Iranian officials have said that the efforts to open alternative routes are progressing rapidly, with 4 Iranian ports along the Caspian working all around the clock to bring in wheat, corn, animal feed, sunflower oil, which they should be using olive oil, and hopefully they know that. I digress, though. And other supplies. So we know, for example, they have many different options. They can trade with Russia, China, Pakistan, which then, of course, they can trade with India, too, by the way. They have other alternatives. They don't need to use the Strait of Hormuz, folks. So, knowing all this, they can get food imported should anything happen to their country. They have many means for water capabilities already. They're not reliant on desalination like Kuwait or the Saudi Arabians are, or the Qataris or the Bahrainis, the UAE, which, again, these countries are struggling right now. And, it's getting hot there, too. And if you can't turn the AC on in these countries when it's scorching hot, which is unbearable at this time of year, which is coming to that point now, a lot of people are going to start leaving these countries. And a lot of these expats are going to be leaving and going elsewhere. There's going to be a big shift taking place inside the Middle East should this war not be solved very, very soon. But I thought this article was interesting because, again, Iran has many different options. We're not talking about these options. And Russia supporting them, China supporting them, Pakistan is supporting them, India is supporting them. And again, their economy is not in shambles like we thought it would be. So we could take a ship here and there. We could do that. We can bomb a port. They've got other alternatives, folks. So let's just be very aware of all this. So as time goes on. But I do want to talk about something else. I want to review something else in another article here that kind of relates to the global economy. This is out of the Wall Street Journal. And it's talking about the oil markets are now underestimating the risk to supply, which is happening right now. We talked on Friday about this too. And just to retort what I had said then, it's very important we understand that the last shipments coming out of the Persian Gulf happened roughly last week. I think one of the last ships made it to California sometime last week for refining. And again, we should understand now there is nothing coming from behind that. That's a very important thing to understand. Now that supply, the realization that it's not coming in anymore is going to have to start setting into these markets. When no more ships are coming in and giving us oil, or going to other countries and giving them oil for refining, that realization now has got to set in the market system. Now, as a result of President Trump denying and refusing the Iranian proposal, we've seen the oil prices starting to skyrocket a little bit today. Earlier today it was about $104 for Brent crude, almost $105. But this is the problem. We're seeing the oil futures now that are starting to set in place. They've been consistently around $100. Those prices are going to start going up. And when those prices start to go up, you're going to see the offshoots and the domino effect of the prices in consumer products. And again, we talked about farmers earlier. What do you think their tractors run on, folks? Water? No, they run on diesel. Diesel's very expensive right now. And it's only going to get more expensive as time goes on. So it costs them more to produce, to run the tractors, to get the fertilizer. All these things are going to factor into food. And again, shipping goods on the roads, it's going to cost more as well to get goods to the market. So we haven't even seen the start of how bad this is going to get. Now, I don't know how bad it will get. It could shoot up to $120, $130, $140, $150, $200 per barrel. I don't know. But I do know that as time goes on, it's going to get much, much worse. And it doesn't matter that the United States produces, was it 24 million barrels of oil per day? We're trading on a global market, folks. And if that global market is out of control, and it's getting much, much higher, or countries are completely running out of oil, what about these other countries, for example, where we rely on getting goods from? Because we're heavily dependent on imports in this country. What happens when they can't ship these goods through tankers, through freight? What if they cannot do these things because the supply is just simply not coming in? Or it just becomes exorbitantly more expensive to us. All of them will be too, by the way. It's going to be a global recession, folks, and it's coming, and it's going to get bad, and it's only going to get worse from here, so long as this war continues on. So that's my point with bringing up this article to us. We're already seeing us dipping into the strategic petroleum reserves here in the United States, as the IEA has advised many countries to ease the pricing. So we haven't even seen the start of it. The supply now is officially cut off. And China may get some oil. We've seen that. We see some other countries getting some of these oil tankers leaving the Iranian coast. Okay, fine. What does that mean for the rest of the world, who's heavily reliant on this oil, which is roughly... Actually, I was listening to Larry Johnson speak over the weekend. The actual number is not 20%. You want to know what the real number is? This is what he found, and again, I didn't clarify, but he said it's 32% of the world's oil supply comes right out of the Persian Gulf. This is going to be very bad. So we're not talking about a fifth, we're talking about a third now, if that is true. And I believe Larry because he does great research. Former CIA analyst, I believe him. So if it's really the 32% or so what he said, this is going to be very, very devastating for a lot of people. And a lot of countries are going to struggle as a result of this. And when the global economy goes bunked, what's going to happen? Well, the U.S. economy follows right away with it. And again, I fear where we're headed, folks. I don't think we're going to be in a time where we've ever experienced what we're about to experience. So this is why I always tell you, make sure you're always stocking up on things you desperately need. Food, water, ammunition, money, currency in your pocket to have, fuel that you have. Stock up on these things. Medicine, absolutely 100%. We've got to be very much aware of all this. And just as a side note, just because we're talking about this other story that it's unfolding, this out of Fox News, says here that Energy Secretary Christopher Wright says that the Trump administration is now going to be opening up the idea to suspend federal gas tax amid price surge. Yeah, well, so this is letting us know, this is the start of it. They're letting us know that things are going to get very bad. And why is it going to get bad? Because I just told you it's going to get bad. I told you the supply is no longer coming in. The supply is now choked off completely. No other ships are coming in with oil out of the Persian Gulf right now. Unless, of course, they're going to China or maybe India or countries like that. But for much of the world, that oil supply has been choked off. And those refineries are offline right now. And it's going to get very, very bad. Let me tell you. So now we understand this. We know that the price of oil is going to start to skyrocket. It's going to start going up. How high, I cannot estimate right now, but it is going to go up. And the realization is going to set in that the supply is no longer there. And the Trump administration understands this. So now they're saying, well, how can we make it cheaper? Well, we can cut off the 18.4%, what is it? Yeah, 18.4 cent per gallon, excuse me, for the federal gasoline tax. Oh, look at that. So now he said, Chris Wright, he was on Meet the Press with Kirsten Welker, he said, we're open to all ideas. How about ending the war, genius? How about doing that? Let's do that. And how about stop selling all our oil, too, by the way, to Japan now? Anyways, he said all the ideas to lower prices for the American consumers and American businesses. Okay, great. 18 cents cheaper when it's already up 52% and it's only going to go more? I mean, my goodness, we saw under the Biden administration at one point it got so bad it was over 100% in many cases. The prices almost doubled. In fact, they did double. In fact, in some parts of California, it tripled. That has to do with California policies as well. And again, other states are going to get hit worse than others. But right now, the average price for gasoline is $4.53 per gallon. And they think shaving off 18 cents is going to help anybody? So again, I asked you in the beginning of the program, does this administration have our backs? What, you think shaving up 18 cents when you've raised it, $1.50 is going to do anything? It's going to help people? Especially working class Americans? It's not going to help people. We've got to get out of this war. We've got to get that straight open. And we've got to get things moving on. We've got to understand we've lost this conflict. I know people don't like to hear this, folks. So yeah, I understand this. I do. I don't want to see the United States lose. But this idea we're going to stay in and somehow it's going to change things, again, is it's for the birds. But he says that we are working every day to offset this rise in prices because of a critical conflict in Iran to drive down prices, and we're open to all such ideas. That's interesting, Chris. What else do we have for us? Anything else? We're going to just cut 18 cents off? What is that going to do for most people? Absolutely nothing in this country. Get us out of this war, stop this conflict. We've got to come to the realization, again, we are not winning, and we're not going to win. There's no way to win. We have no strategy to win, and we have no objectives to be met, and we haven't met those objectives, any of them, by the way, whether it be helping the Iranian people, which, again, I don't think the U.S. could care less about. Regime change, that's not happening. It's not going to happen. We're not ending their ballistic missile program. We're not going to get the highly enriched uranium. We're not going to be able to militarily open up the Strait of Hormuz because we would have done it already. We would have done it already. And again, it's just not going to happen, folks. All right, so I wanted to bring that up with you because, again, I think it's very important to see where we are headed. And if the government is talking about cutting a tax, which we barely ever see things like this. Again, we're looking into taking oil out of the strategic petroleum reserves too, which again is only supposed to be for our military. Now we're going to start doing what Biden did. When Biden couldn't control the prices, what did he do? He dipped into that. And so he's saying too, we revised EPA regulations on summer gasoline blend to make it easier for American refineries to produce more gasoline. Give me a break. What are you going to do when there's no gasoline to put in there? Or it's going to cost more to refine that oil. It's going to cost more regardless. Again, we're talking about a global market. We just don't dictate the price. All these different futures from different parts of the country dictate what's going on. Whether it be Brent crude or West Texas Intermediate, or Murbayne crude or Urals crude or Indian crude or Dubai crude, doesn't matter. It's going to cost more. That's just the way the market works. So it doesn't matter we're the biggest producer of oil in the world, which we are, and I'm happy about that. It's still going to cost more because it's a global market. So you figured Chris Wright would understand this. Unfortunately, he does not. You know, folks, another story worth noting today, and I was going to talk about this on Friday, and then I saw this gem on Fox Business. This is wonderful, by the way. This is AOC at her best, I have to tell you. You'll love this article. Says here that what did she say here now? Okay, a proposal backed by Representative Ocasio-Cortez, the genius that she is, to raise the federal minimum wage to $25 an hour is drawing warnings from economists who say that the plan could squeeze small businesses and hit red states the hardest. Maybe that's what she wants. Or maybe she doesn't understand economics. Probably both. So because many of these red states remain near the $7.25 federal floor for the minimum wage, the move would more than triple wages in many of these regions. And this is a jump that economists are saying could hit really hard for the smaller businesses to absorb the shock price, which will then raise the risk for higher pricing at these markets when, again, we already know prices are going to be skyrocketing very, very soon. And this is at a time when they're reducing hiring, and this is a time for broader economic strain. We're already in this mess. And she, the idiot that she is, she wants to come in now and raise the minimum wage. So I want you to think about that for a second. And, you know, either she doesn't understand how minimum wage works, so only a couple things can come from this. If you raise the minimum wage, the federal minimum wage, right? If you do that, businesses can only do one of two things. They either lay people off, they remove people from working full time so they don't have to meet that obligation, or they raise their prices. Time and time again, usually they raise their prices. So when the prices go up, it doesn't even matter, obviously. But that means, again, a bigger strain on your pocketbook. If you're in these states that are getting this big shockwave, the price has to go up in order for them to function. Otherwise, again, they go out of business because they can't turn a profit because they're paying their workers so much more money for the same labor of which they are producing. Let's understand how the market works. I don't know how she has a degree in economics, too, by the way. Does anybody understand this? I don't get this at all. I really don't understand how she's this clueless on how minimum wage works. But this is AOC. There you go, folks. There you go. By the way, I've got to break down something, too, from her. This is going to be, obviously, again, very bad for this minimum wage hike, should that happen. And it's obviously going to disproportionately impact younger and lower income workers, too, which she could give less than a damn about. And again, as I said to you before, to offset the high labor costs, these people don't get hired, and these are the jobs these people need. These menial tasks or jobs people get as a starting job, they need these jobs. And nothing is more discriminating against usually minority young adults in a lot of these areas, because these businesses are simply not going to pay that much money to hire these people. So they get hurt in the long run, and they lose out on the opportunity to do so. Or again, if businesses just simply stop hiring, again, we can look at things like hospitality, restaurants. Again, the higher labor costs could lead to more job losses, and again, make it more harder for these businesses to just operate in general. But I think the thing that was the funniest that she did over the weekend, this is a gem. This is hilarious. Again, I don't think she knows anything about economics. And I don't say that to be mean, folks. I'm just telling you because it's true. She has no idea how the economy works. And I find that very funny from someone who graduated with honors from Boston University, was it? With a degree in economics. Anyways, this is her on some podcast that I don't know the name of, and tell you the truth, I don't want to know the name. This is her talking about billionaires. Listen to this.
There's a certain level of wealth and accumulation that is unearned, right? You can't earn $1 billion.
That's right.
You just can't earn that.
That's exactly correct.
You can get market power. You can break rules. You can do all sorts of things. You can abuse labor laws.
Yep.
You can pay people less than what they're worth.
Yep.
But you can't earn that, right?
That's right.
And so you have to create a myth that since you didn't earn that, you have to create a myth of earning it.
That's amazing. It really is amazing, isn't it, folks? You can't earn $1 billion. That's like a one with a lot of zeros after it. I mean, this is crazy. That's like 9 zeros. You can get 6 zeros. Oh, you can become a millionaire, no problem. But a billionaire? No. Not a chance. It's like she has no idea what the hell she's talking about. And by the way, let me ask you this. Just to easily debunk this idiot. If billionaires don't exist, then why is her co-part in the Senate, Bernie Sanders, always constantly talking about billionaires now? He stopped talking about millionaires once it was known that he was worth millions of dollars, It was well known that he was worth many millions of dollars, so that went away. He couldn't say millionaires and billionaires. Millionaires and billionaires. He couldn't say that anymore. He had to go to billionaires. And, of course, their fair share and all that other nonsense. So how could Bernie Sanders be going after billionaires if they don't exist? If it's all just a myth? I mean, this passes for logic coming out of Congress. I mean, we are in trouble. Make no mistake about it, we are in trouble if this type of stupidity is allowed to exist much longer. But I think the other thing that she said just recently, on top of being ignorant about the economy and how people make lots of money, by the way, but here's something else she did. This was easily one of the most refutable lies about history that has probably ever been told, and AOC takes the cake on this. Why anyone would invite this balloon head on their show, I'm sure I don't know, by the way. Imagine having to listen to her speak for any great length of time, I think is, I don't know, a test in, testing your patience. Listen to what she said to the same woman. This is part of the same interview. Listen to what she said about democracy.
Black Americans really created democracy in this country.
Right. That's exactly right.
How they literally made something from nothing. It is just beyond me.
It's beyond her. Yes, it's beyond her intelligence, that's for sure. I'm convinced AOC is either knowingly making things up right now, or she is completely stupid. Or that she has never studied history in any great length. By the way, I'm in a generous mood today, right? Let's have some fun with this one. Let's check out and see if she's actually right. Let's see if the ignoramus interviewing her also agreeing with everything she's saying. Oh, yeah, no billionaires. No. Democracy? Oh, yeah. Black people created democracy. All right, well, let's check it out. It's easy, right? We can look it up. Let's research it and see if it's actually true. Now, when we look at the earliest forms of history, in regards, we can come across ancient Greece, ancient Rome, by the way. Those are the first declared democracies, certainly, that have been implemented. Let's take a look at it. Here it is. Let's look at ancient Greece. Democracy, which of course we know is ruled by the people, dates all the way back to 508 BC. A long time ago. Can't even count that far for AOC. So we go to Athens, Greece, right? And we look at, for example, Cleisthenes. He was the earliest recording of a direct democracy, and this allowed all the male citizens, that AOC would hate that part too, by the way, but only male citizens were allowed to vote. They were allowed to participate in the political process. They implemented the Council of 500 that was formed, and each of the 10 tribes sent 50 men to serve for 1 year at a time to set agendas, to supervise the magistrates, discuss finances, and to give a voice to every part of Attica. Now, last I checked, ladies and gentlemen, the Greeks were not blacks. There's no evidence of that, and certainly any type of history or statues of the time do not indicate that as well. So let's check that one off. The Greeks are not blacks. Okay. How about the Romans, particularly the Roman Republic? So about the same time Greece adopts democracy, Rome does as well. And what did they do? Now, it differed slightly, of course. They gave themselves a mixed constitution with power kind of being divided among the consuls, the Senate, the assemblies, kind of looking at what our government looks like today. So what they did was the people of Rome would elect the magistrates, the popular assemblies, where Romans voted on laws, and of course the elected officials, and they had checks and balances. Sound familiar? Yep. And unbeknownst to AOC, the Romans, likewise, were also not black. Just thought I'd be clear on that. Okay. Let's fast forward, though. We don't have much time left in today's broadcast. And again, I gave you some more lessons on the Magna Carta, the Enlightenment, the French Revolution. We can look at our own revolution, of course. Let's look at the American Revolution. Our founding fathers, all English colonists, I would have to say, looked at several different styles of government, but they focused on Greece, for example. They looked at Rome, Roman civil law, one of the biggest influences, certainly. They looked at the reason why we have a republic and not a direct democracy, which would be mob rule, where 51% can tell the other 49 what to do. They studied British common law. They studied the English Bill of Rights. They studied a lot of different things. But finally, one of the most important aspects of our government today, I have to tell you, and I always mention this to you, was Protestant Christianity. A huge part of the laws and, of course, how governance works. And again, this is why I tell you we were always based on Christian values, because we are based on Christian values. Limited power, self-governance, moral responsibility, and, of course, restraining human nature. And again, sadly for AOC, and maybe she doesn't know this because she never studied a damn thing in her entire life, the Founding Fathers as well were not black. So I don't know where she gets off saying these things. I really don't, that she makes these things up. I mean, remember Joe Biden came out a couple years ago and said that the light bulb was created by a black man? I didn't know Thomas Edison was black, did you? It's amazing. It really is, folks, when these people talk out loud. They let their stupidity and their ignorance shine really bright. And that's what AOC did in this interview. It's unbelievable. We're out of time for today's show, folks. Thank you for being here as always. Share the show with others. I appreciate you when you do that. Make sure you're staying prepped with food, water, medicine, fuel, money, ammo, anything to be self-sufficient right now. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you back here tomorrow for more groundbreaking news on the next Marco Dure Show. Until then, be good, stay busy. God bless.